This is the developer of the Shadow of Chernobyl update project, and once again, I'm glad to welcome you all back to the channel. A lot has changed since last time, both in the project itself and beyond. Locations have gained new details, the visuals have become a bit more expressive, and in some places, the gameplay has received fresh touches as well. In this video, I'll also be answering your questions and talking about future plans. To be honest, this episode was harder to make than usual. There were both personal matters and technical issues that slowed down the release of the news. First, the CPU cooling system failed, the pump broke down, and I had to replace the entire cooling setup. Later, while recording footage from the project, the drive containing my editing projects gave out. I installed a new work drive, but I had to recreate the projects from scratch. This is just a small aside, not an excuse, but rather a little peek behind the scenes of development. So, let's not drag things out any longer and move on to the news. First, let's talk about locations, and this time, I won't be showing them in strict order. We'll go from the ones with fewer changes to the ones with the most. And first on the list is Agroprom. There won't be long stories here, we'll just walk around and see what has changed so you can judge for yourself. Sometimes, atmosphere speaks louder than words. Since the last news video, this location has received new assets added by Kirill, as well as a few unique objects. For example, pipes and containers have been replaced, and in some areas, vegetation has been reworked, giving the territory a more lively appearance. That's all for Agroprom, and we're moving on to the next map, Dark Valley. Here, the changes are about the same as in the previous location, so to keep the video moving, I'll just show you footage of the updated details. Next, we'll talk about locations that received significantly more improvements than the previous two. Let's start with the garbage. And to jump ahead a little, I'll note that these changes were made 3 months ago and didn't take much time to complete. First of all, why did I decide to make such changes? I'll explain that in more detail when we get to the Cordon. It will make more sense then. Will these updates be used in the game's story or in new quests? Yes, absolutely. But how, why, and in what way, that's something each player will discover for themselves while playing. Now for the details. Some old assets were replaced, new models were added, the railway equipment was updated, vegetation was reworked, and most importantly, a new complex appeared near the duty checkpoint. Railway equipment update. The train set remains purely decorative, but now each unit is a reworked model with new textures. Rusty wagons and half-broken locomotives now look as if they've been standing here for decades, and they no longer stick out due to low detail compared to the rest of the scenery. New complex. This industrial hub is a whole labyrinth of ruined workshops, rusted tanks, and half-collapsed walkways between buildings. Once, it was clearly alive with activity conveyors humming, steam rising from pipes, but now it's a dead giant, its corridors hiding traces of an old catastrophe. Shattered windows, tilted metal frames, twisted sheets of corrugated iron all create the feeling that the place was abandoned in a hurry. Who left it, and why, is yet to be discovered. And rest assured, wandering in here will be not only intriguing but also dangerous. Players will notice that the location is designed so that each visit to the complex can play out differently. You can move along the covered walkways, risking falling through rotting floors, or sneak in from below, through the storage areas full of dark corners. The factory structure itself is worth mentioning. It consists of several large buildings connected by bridges and pipelines. 2 massive storage tanks are visible from afar, and some buildings still hold fragments of production equipment. This adds atmosphere and gives the impression that the plant could be revived if there were the will and resources. When creating this place, I used a combination of reworked old models and entirely new assets, including unique, ruined structures never before seen in the game. This makes the complex feel cohesive while avoiding repetition of objects already familiar to players. Vegetation rework. Mainly because of the new plant, I had to redo all the vegetation in the area. Some models were completely removed, others replaced with new ones. Since the project has gained new types of trees, bushes, and other plants since the last news video, these updates also extended to other parts of the location. In some places, vegetation has been reduced, and that clearly helped improve the visuals. Let's move on to the next location, Yantar. For new viewers and those who missed the previous episodes, here's a quick reminder about this location. The original Yantar geometry was completely discarded, and the version from the early builds was taken as the base. It seemed more interesting and better suited for the project's needs. However, to be honest, this turned out to be a mistake. The location had too many problems, and it would have been easier to create it from scratch. But back then, in the early stages of development, I thought my skills might not be enough. So I decided not to take the risk. I delayed the latest Yantar improvements for quite a while, so I could get more practice on other maps first. And I believe that was the right decision. The first version turned out detailed and interesting, but as they say, the devil is in the details. Along with fixing old issues, the location received major vegetation changes. Now, it looks much livelier and more diverse. There are now small and medium-sized trees, dense bushes, willows along the shores of the dried-out reservoir. Dead vegetation was also added to highlight the danger of certain areas, as well as reeds with paths running through them. The grass was completely reworked. Now more optimized models are used, which significantly improve performance. Optimization is one of the project's top priorities. Sure, I could have done it faster and with more detailed models, but then the 2 update would require a graphics card on the level of an RTX 5080 or 5090, and the FPS would still be low. I understand that not everyone has the opportunity to build a powerful PC, so my goal is to make the game comfortable to play across as wide a range of systems as possible. Yantar has also changed inside its buildings. There are more small details now. Nothing major, but they help convey the feeling that people once lived and worked here, and then it was all abandoned. Vehicles have been updated as well. There are a few more of them now, placed exactly where they best enhance the atmosphere and complement the overall look of the location. Now let's talk about a location that received truly massive upgrades, ones that weren't even planned at first. It all started when one of our subscribers who has his own project, the link to which I'll leave in the description and pinned comment, shared his work on reimagining the Cordon. At that stage, it was already too late to take the entire location, but some of his ideas seemed very interesting. I thought for a long time about whether to tackle these updates, weighing how much time it would take, considering all the pros and cons, and in the end, I decided to go for it. Along with this, I also made some long-awaited changes to other locations that I had wanted to do for a while, but had been putting off. One of them, I already mentioned, the garbage. There were also a few changes in the bar, but not enough to warrant showing them. So, back to the Cordon. The military base and surrounding area have been significantly reworked. There is now a partially dried out body of water, and the defensive wall has been redesigned. Can you still sneak onto the base the same way as before? Yes, but the method has changed, and in my opinion, this only improves the gameplay. The player will have to rediscover what seemed like a familiar story moment. Equally important changes have affected the rookie village. Its location remains the same, but the village itself has grown. More houses have been added, along with new vehicles. I also made some small tweaks to older spots in the village. For example, one of the houses now has a garage with a car. Next, the anomaly area with the house by the swamps, near the village. The changes here aren't large-scale, but they are visually striking. Reeds and smaller vegetation have been added, greatly improving the feel of the place. As for the vehicle depot, it remains unchanged, as I'm fully satisfied with it. However, the surrounding area has been updated, and you can see all the changes on screen. Now for a very significant improvement. On the Cordon, the bridge where the military were originally stationed has been replaced. At first, the model came from the subscriber's work, but Kirill decided to rework it entirely and ended up creating the bridge from scratch. This took more time and effort than we expected, but the result was absolutely worth it. In addition to the new bridge, the railway tracks have been updated. The tunnel at the end of the location has been improved, railway equipment has been upgraded, and many new details have been added: poles, wires, and more. A new building has also appeared by the bridge, which sparked mixed opinions. Some like it, others don't. I always try to listen to my audience. So let's decide together. Should I leave the building as it is, modify it, or remove it entirely? Your feedback will determine what happens next, so I'm looking forward to your comments. In the meantime, let me show you a new point of interest not far from the spot where, in the story, the player helps the stalker nicknamed Fox. There is now a small fishing hamlet with a pond. After all these changes, the location has grown noticeably larger, with more new points of interest and some updated old ones. Overall, the concept remains the same, but exploring it has become much more engaging. Most importantly, the feeling of the location being cramped has disappeared, which has greatly improved both the visuals and gameplay. Now we've come to a location that the project's community has started calling the Secret One. I decided not to argue and to keep the mystery, so I won't name this location outright, though some of you may have already guessed what I'm talking about. Yes, it's the swamps. This location is essential to the project because of changes in the game's storyline, but it's not that simple. What you're seeing on screen now is not exactly what you'll see until a certain point in the game. For clarification, I should explain something for new viewers. Even in the available version of the project, you can change seasons directly in the settings without restarting the game. You can even turn on winter mode. However, the swamps will initially appear in their winter form, regardless of the selected season. Here, you'll have to survive in harsh conditions, bad weather, low visibility, new variations of familiar monsters, and unique anomalies that exist only on this location in winter mode. On top of that, the location is extremely dangerous due to very low temperatures, and without special equipment, reaching it will be almost impossible. What exactly you'll have to do, and what challenges you'll face, each player will discover on their own during the game. I don't want to reveal all the details in advance to preserve the mystery and intrigue. What was done to the location? It's based on the version from the Clear Sky expansion, not from any modifications. All vegetation has been completely replaced, and in some areas, the vegetation concept has been reworked entirely. A huge number of rocks, many of which had been placed rather haphazardly, have been removed. Key points of interest have been expanded. New buildings have been added. Interiors have been filled in. All vehicles have been replaced, not just swapped for higher quality models, but also increased in number overall. The railway trains have also been replaced with more detailed and refined ones. I don't plan to go into detail about every change on the swamps. Most of it is right there on your screen. The most important thing I want to say is this. The location pack for version 2 is complete. But we'll talk about the locations and future plans in the next part of the video. For now, let's move on to graphics and gameplay. Let's start with the new assets that have been added to the project over time, but that I haven't shown before. I should note right away, this is far from everything you'll see in the mod. Some models we took from other games. Some were found on platforms like Sketchfab. Some were purchased and then edited for the project. And a few we created entirely from scratch. Now, about graphics. Recently, quite a few improvements have been made that enhance the overall visuals. First, the roads. Asphalt is now rendered using two textures blended together via a generated mask. What does this do? The visuals have become much more interesting. Roads no longer look monotonous, and in some places they've been made noticeably more worn. This also affects puddles. In some spots, they are shallower. In others, deeper. As for other upgrades, terrain detailing. Previously, some areas used a single detailed texture, but now there are three. This has noticeably added depth and variety to the terrain. A separate category of updates, winter mode. This has especially affected the swamps, since they contain unique models that are meant to appear only in the winter version. Thanks to engine improvements, we were finally able to implement this exactly the way we wanted from the start. Now, about shadows and performance. The lighting rendering logic has been changed. All light sources farther than 20 meters from the camera now use a simplified shader. This distance can be adjusted in the settings. Visually, the difference is almost unnoticeable, but the load on the system is significantly reduced. I haven't done specific measurements yet, but it will be especially interesting to test this with PCSS shadows, which used to noticeably drop FPS at ultra quality. Next is a feature that almost ended up in the trash. I'm talking about the on-screen camera effect. I'll say right away the visuals aren't final yet, as I'm still testing different variations. Originally, this feature was created for a specific quest. According to the plot, the main character had to gather clear proof of completing an objective. That's why we made a camera mode with extra effects. The quest was never written, but the mechanic remained, and I decided not to cut it. Now, players will be able to enable this mode via the console or in the settings menu. In certain quests, using the camera will grant a bonus reward if the proof is recorded, and in some missions, it will be absolutely necessary. For those who enjoy unusual gameplay, it's quite an interesting addition. Weapon inspection. This isn't done through animations, but by manipulating the weapon's parameters in the player's hands. Each weapon can have these parameters customized individually. Essentially, it's a small and not particularly essential feature. However, it adds just a bit more interactivity with weapons and, in a way, enhances immersion. During the announcement of the news video, I mentioned that I would answer your questions and ask you to leave comments. Well, here we are, time to get to your questions. I should note that I've skipped any questions about the release date. The reason for that will be clear from the next segment of this video. A while back, you showed some new mutant models. If people don't like them, will it be possible to switch them back to the vanilla ones? In the end, in version 2, the mutant models will be different from the ones I showed earlier, but there will definitely be no option to revert to the default ones. In Update 2, have the sarcophagus and Chernobyl NPP been reworked? Yes, there are some changes compared to the current available version, but I haven't shown them, and I might not. Will there be an intermediate patch, or will it go straight to 2? There will definitely be no intermediate, alpha, or beta versions. Only the 2 release, plus a small fix for the current available version. I'd like to know about additional quests and storylines, and their current state, and have you managed to find voice actors for the NPCs? I'll talk more about development plans in the next segment, but in short, I'll work on quests later. As for voice acting, it's moving forward, albeit slowly. The main issue was that I had to make a lot of changes to the written dialogue for secondary characters. As they're ready, I'll send the scripts for recording, thankfully. There are plenty of willing people. Wishing the author good luck. And my question, will there be guides? Thanks for the kind words. As for the question, yes, there will be. Is it planned or even possible to port DualSense controller features straight from the enhanced edition of the recent trilogy? Definitely not. In my view, shooters and gamepads just don't go together, on PC especially, and consoles are a separate topic altogether. Tell us more about the artifact and detector system. I hope artifacts will be like in SoC, visible and without degradation. I heard you were already working on them. Will artifact properties be changed in the final version? Will there be remodeling of unique NPCs like Sidorovich, Barman, etc.? There won't be a true remodeling to make them look exactly like in the original. The models will be replaced, but I'll try to preserve their appearance as much as possible. Will there be new stashes and hideouts, like in Call of Pripyat? In 2, all stashes will be new. The system will be a mix of Shadow of Chernobyl and Call of Pripyat. Have anomaly effects been optimized so that a large number of active anomalies won't cause FPS drops? Where possible, yes, optimization has been done, but particles still need more work, so they're not in their final state yet. Will there be archaeanomalies? Yes, there will. The project materials clearly show this. Will enemy NPCs have a proper balance? So they don't shoot through walls, throw grenades, and shoot through bushes with sniper accuracy, or have bandits one-shotting the player in an exoskeleton from 20 meters with a Makarov, while surviving rifle shots and leather jackets? I'll do everything I can, but keep in mind there will be more than one difficulty level, and each will have its own parameters. Which location was the hardest for you to make, and which is your favorite? The hardest was Pripyat, partly because of its size. As for my favorite, I can't single one out. I'm satisfied with all of them to some extent. Do you think the Steam Deck will handle it? No idea. I don't have such hardware, I'm not familiar with it, and I don't even know its specs. After this project, do you plan to do the same for other parts, like Clear Sky? No such plans at the moment. And the last question, would you like to change the story, for example, by adding a completely new one? I've said many times that the original game's story will be refined. As for making a completely new plot, I see no point in doing that for an old game's modification. I'm very concerned about the quality of high-voltage power line supports, which are the same as in the original. Is there a chance to replace them with higher quality models? The possibility exists, but considering the number of locations, it's not a one-day job. Since this isn't a priority detail and the original models are just about acceptable, I'm not planning to work on it. Hello. I have just one question. Where do you find so much time to work on such an amazing project? Hi. Honestly, I'm a rather unsociable person with very few friends. I rarely meet or talk to anyone, even on Discord. So all the time I could spend socializing or playing other games, I put into the project. But I've long accepted this, because my goal is to make game development my full-time job. And only through hard work and sometimes certain sacrifices can you achieve any real success. Will it be possible to level up the character? Such mechanics were never planned. What engine version is the mod built on? The current version uses OGSR. I don't recall exactly which version with my own improvements. In 2, however, it's already a different engine, and the project source code isn't publicly available. What do you plan to do with the sarcophagus control bunker? Will you keep it corridor-like, or will you change it? Honestly, almost nothing. The location is small, but it works fine for what's needed in its original form. What will the GPU requirements be? You haven't mentioned them in a while. So far, the requirements haven't changed. They're about the same as the current version. But until the second stage of closed beta testing is done, which I'll talk about later, I can't give more precise info. After finalizing the locations, what else will get a rework? I'll talk about development plans a bit later in the video. Could you share some interesting details about the weather system? What's there to tell? There are 7 presets that switch dynamically. They're made to create the most diverse visuals possible, and when working on the configs, I wasn't aiming for realism. My priority is a beautiful, interesting picture in the game. If I want reality, I'll just go outside. Regarding mutants, will the game include ones that didn't make it into SoC? The cut mutants are present in the current version, and they'll be in 2 as well. Will the mod have new side activities? New quests, and not only quests, will be in 2. Can I use your assets? Yes, of course, but only after release. Will there be differences in game economy between difficulty levels, or will the economy be the same for all difficulties? The chosen difficulty will definitely affect the economy, but I can't yet say how significant that impact will be. I haven't gotten to tweaking those parameters yet. Is there free play in this mod? And are there any global quests tied to the main storyline? In the current version of the mod, free play becomes available after finishing the story. In 2, we have slightly different plans for it. Now, about the development plans. The location pack for version 2 is fully complete. I haven't shown all the changes, which is why the news updates might seem a bit less frequent than they could be. Based on the results of the first stage of closed beta testing, CBT, some additional adjustments may still be made, but I'll talk about that later. Also, there will be changes from Kirill as he continues to work in parallel with the main development. What's next? After this news video is released, I'll take 1, maybe 2 days off from the project to return to work with a fresher mind. The next stage will be weapons. First, I'll review the weapon list. Some guns might be removed, others might be added. After that, I'll work on refining the models, configs, and sounds. There are also unfinished features that have been waiting their turn while all my time was going into locations. For example, the weapon upgrade system. I need to polish it, create icons for this system, and also for the weapon customization menu. There's plenty of work to be done there. What comes after the weapons? The first stage of CBT will begin. I'll say right away there's no need to send in applications for testing. I won't be reviewing them. This especially applies to streamers and YouTubers. I don't want important information to leak into the public before release. Besides, the list of participants has already been determined later. I will personally invite these people. While testing is underway, I'll be working on the engine, as there's a lot to do there. I already have a complete plan in mind, and I hope my knowledge and skills will be enough for everything the project needs. According to the plan, right after the first stage of CBT, the second stage should start, where people will test the project after the engine refinements. While the second stage is running, I'll be addressing the feedback from the first stage. After that, quests. In parallel with them, work on gameplay mechanics. Once the story content is ready, we'll launch the final stage of CBT, where I plan to bring in additional testers. After fixing all the bugs found release, as you can see, I have a very clear and quite realistic development plan. The main problem is the lack of manpower. Over the course of development, I've met many people who made big promises but either did nothing or contributed very little. That's why I stopped looking for helpers a long time ago. I don't want to waste my time. Of course, I'd be more than happy to entrust someone with engine work, to port the project to one of the top-tier platforms like X-Ray. Many can't even imagine how much that would ease my life and speed up progress. But we have what we have, so we move forward with our own skills. And the project will be released no matter what. That's not even up for discussion. Moreover, in my view, there simply can't be any other option. Over time, I've heard all sorts of opinions, that the project will die, or that I'll drop everything. But such words come from weak or envious people, and they're not worth paying attention to. We keep moving forward, and the news doesn't end here. Finally, a few words about 2 add-ons from one of the project's subscribers. The first is the release of the location pack from the currently available version, adapted for the almost vanilla game. Let me explain. These locations won't run on the original game's clean engine, so the add-on will be made for OGSR. I'll specify the exact version closer to release. At the very least, the pack will work on that engine and on others with the necessary modifications. The second add-on is called Old Style Update. Its purpose is to bring the game's visuals closer to the style of early builds, but with the use of modern features. This creates an interesting mix of the old atmosphere and new technologies. I can't say exactly when these 2 add-ons will be released. I'm not developing them directly, only providing advice and some minor help. You'll be able to find them in the project's group and on Discord. Now, a little about the update experiments. I'd like to hear your opinion on one important detail loading screens. I haven't yet decided which option to choose for release: slightly edited in-game screenshots, or screenshots reworked into artwork with the help of neural networks. You can see both options on the screen right now, so write in the comments which one you prefer. That's where I'll wrap up this news update. A huge thank you to everyone for watching, for your feedback, and for any kind of support. I hope the new version of the project won't disappoint when it's released. I understand it's impossible to please absolutely everyone, but I do feel the responsibility towards those who are waiting, and I treat it with the utmost seriousness.